Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so thrilled to celebrate the incredible women in our industry with you. But before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Live Area, ListTrack, Afterpay, and Just Juno, whose sponsorship funds were generously donated directly to Girls Inc. If you want to share any content from the event on social, use the hashtag Women in Ecom and tag us directly at Yotpo. Stay in touch with us, join our community, and sign up for our newsletter to hear more about the program, our amazing women, events, content, and much more. You can also connect with us here and now during the event. We'll be using a chat tool that lets you ask questions, share your opinion, and connect with other viewers. But of course, including our amazing honorees who are also watching and can answer here today. And here's the moment of truth we've all been waiting for. We have a great lineup of speakers, and kicking off the event, we'll have a panel featuring Laura Fiota, Director of CRM at Helix Sleep, Courtney Hedges, AVP of Digital Marketing at Live Area, and Mickey Krimmel, Founder at Superfit Hero, moderated by our very own Ruthie Berber, the Amazing Women in E-commerce Program Director. And last but not least, that will be followed up by an incredible Q&A session with Cher Fuller, Senior Manager of CRM and Loyalty at Forever 21, and moderated by our Senior Enterprise Account Executive, Ashley Rosenthal. We're super excited to have these women here today because this community really matters to us personally. Our company, Yotpo, is an e-commerce marketing platform for D2C brands, and we're constantly talking to incredible women who are taking risks, pushing boundaries, and just doing amazing work in their roles. And many of those women are our own coworkers. So we wanted to champion them in a way that lifts up the community. So we're just glad to be here 3 years later with all of you today. And without further ado, let's get started with our panel discussion.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion about strategies for making meaningful customer connections. I'm Ruthie Berber, Senior Manager of Community and Program Director of Amazing Women in E-commerce here at Yotpo, and I'm joined by several of our amazing women. I've got Mickey Krimmel from Superfit Hero, Laura Fiatora from Helix Sleep, and Courtney Hedges from Live Area. Before we dive into today's topic, maybe each of you could just quickly introduce yourself to the community and tell us briefly how you got into e-commerce. Laura, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I'm Laura. I work at Helix Sleep. And I'm the director of CRM. We aim to create the most comfortable, personalized home furniture and buying experience through our 3 sister brands. So we have Helix Sleep, which is our legacy brand, which is a personalized mattress, bed and box. And then we also have Birch, which is our organic mattress line, and on All Forms Sofa, which is our modular sofa. Helix is actually one of the first e-commerce brands that I've worked on. I've worked with e-commerce brands from the agency side. So a couple of years ago, I switched over to the brand
side. Courtney, what about you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Hedges. I'm the Area Vice President of Digital Marketing here at Live Area. So Live Area was really my first stint in commerce. And what I've really enjoyed about the last almost 10 years with Live Area is just the fact that e-commerce is so measurable and everything that we do is so easy to measure and show performance and really optimize. And so for me, that's really what got me excited about jumping into the e-commerce side of things. Before that, I was working for more of a traditional agency.
Got it. Mickey, what about you?
My name is Mickey Krimmel, and I'm the founder and CEO of Superfit Hero. We are the world's most inclusive premium plus-size activewear brand. We manufacture everything here in LA and sell direct-to-consumer at superfithero.com. This is my first e-commerce foray as well. I founded the business in 2015, first as a Kickstarter. It was initially a brand focused on the roller derby community. Now, I was very, very active in roller derby at the time. And as we sort of started to grow organically on, Instagram and other social media sites to other sports that sort of share our body positive ethos, then we really jumped into like trying to scale the business, spending money on advertising and, figuring out all of the metrics that Courtney was referring to. So yeah, we're about 5 years in now.
Awesome. So you are all extremely well qualified to talk about meaningful customer connections. So my first question to you all is, how can brands create relationships with customers that go beyond just the transactional? And why is it so important for brands to invest in that? Mickey, why don't you kick us off?
We think about this constantly. We really lean into our smallness as a brand. We're competing with Adidas, Nike, Lululemon, like giant brands with millions and millions of dollars in marketing. And so for us, having that one-to-one relationship with our customers is the thing that we can do better. And so we really focus on this. We have our email is the main way. We sign off all of our emails encouraging folks to reply to us, and they do, and we respond. And so we open up really like one-to-one conversations, which is something the larger brands just can't do. We also have a really active Facebook group where folks, post about, what's your weekly superhero moment, things like that. We're super engaged with our community. We have a body positive fitness finder where we share, weight neutral, body positive fitness resources with our community completely for free. And so like once a week, we make sure one of our emails is a free resource, a community resource, something that's not, just trying to sell. So yeah, it's something we think about a ton. We have a really great relationship with our customers.
I love that. Laura, what about you?
It's funny that Mingy speaks to the creating that really one-to-one relationship, because when Helix started a couple of years ago, we were a small brand in a large vertical, and I think that we really tied into that too. So a challenge for me is to maintain that level of messaging and authenticity and really genuine connection at scale. And so that's something that I think that we're really trying to understand through different like educational resources and content and nurturance to really bridge the gap between us still being like a small, startup and scaling that.
Yeah, for sure. Courtney, what about you from a completely different perspective?
Yeah, I think the brands that we'll work with, we're always talking about kind of giving your customers a reason to come back to purchase. And I think, we've seen really great success with loyalty programs, right? Just keeping that communications going, giving them some exclusivity, giving them perks and benefits of being a part of the loyalty program. And then I think, just being smart about every touch point you have with customers. And so, email and SMS are huge channels for that, just making sure that you're using the data, the purchase data, the behaviors, what you know about your customers to really try to kind of foster that one-on-one communication that the other gals were talking about.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny that you mentioned loyalty and SMS, because obviously we believe that very strongly here at Yotpo, that this is a way to engage and grow relationships in value-driven ways, which is so important when shoppers have so many brands to choose from, which actually leads me to my next question. What are some challenges to engaging customers online? The competition seems tougher than ever. Courtney, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, I really think that, cutting through that clutter is difficult, right? So if it's Instagram ads, Facebook ads, influencers, supported campaigns, or, even paid search, right? It's just more and more competitive. But I think that that's really where, you can really dive into the data and the analytics of seeing what's performing and kind of shifting your budget. For us, when we're talking to our clients about just all of their paid media efforts, we kind of talk about that holistically, because, maybe with COVID and different trends and search terms and things have changed over time, and how people want to shop has changed, making sure that we stay really close to that and not just say, well, this is our paid search budget. No, paid search isn't working. We're going to take that. We're going to move it to Facebook, or Facebook isn't working. We're going to try this channel or that channel. I think just being really nimble and allowing the data to kind of navigate, what you're doing, because it's crazy. It's crazy. It's a lot to keep up with, but something that, we work really closely with our brands to understand.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. Does anyone else want to share their thoughts about this one?
I do. We've been thinking a lot about how we can actually customize our user experience online. So like specific to our consumer. I did a really extensive customer research project where I did, I think, 40 interviews with some of our best customers to ask them, what problems do you have purchasing activewear online? And it was less about, Superfit Hero explicitly, but just what are the problems and how can we solve them? And so one of the things that kept coming up, and this won't be a surprise to any of us as we're all shopping online for clothes now, is just the lack of trust around fit and sizing. And this is especially true for plus size folks because there's just no standard. And size charts are notoriously wrong. Brands will say, we go up to a 4X and the 4X will fit like a 2X. And so there's a huge lack of trust in our community around fit and sizing. And so, the first thing we did was just test and retest our size chart so that people can trust it. But we're also just trying to make that process easier for people. So we launched our free Try Before You Buy program, where we actually encourage new customers to try multiple sizes for free for 7 days and just keep what fits. And this has been a transformative experience for our customers. We've gotten tons of great reviews on it. And we're working now on ways to integrate that even more into our onboarding process for new customers.
Laura, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that for us, it's a little bit different in the sense that we have very long lead, high AOV products. People aren't just typically going out and buying mattresses every 6 months or even sofas. So one thing that we try and do is create mini habit moments to increase retention and to really keep our customers engaged in what makes sense. So, providing content about cleaning your mattress at a year and a half, or, understanding how to protect your mattress in the best way at 6 months. And I think that has really been a test and, trial kind of experience because, we're really not sure what's going to work. It's a newer arm of our CRM account, but I think that it's kind of the challenge in the vertical that we're in.
For sure. My next question is really around retention. So obviously we've been hearing from brands that retention is going to be a huge goal in the coming year. Acquisition costs are rising, everyone's doubling down on retention. So my question is, for brands that are looking to rethink their retention strategies, where should they start? What questions should they even be asking?
I think that for us, we are very much focused on the data. And so we're in a unique time in our, business where we're really trying to not just grow, but retain. And I think that is part of just going back to the data and looking for those post-purchase insights. And it's not just when are they going to buy their next product, but also what are the behaviors that they're doing on any of our sister sites? Are they engaging with any different touch points in our media mix? How are they speaking to our customer service team? Are they asking for help, or are they having a lot of difficulty, with delivery and things like that? That is really helping to understand who the Helix customer is after they buy versus who they are as a prospect.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the things that we talk to our clients about all the time is, are you really getting the most out of your email program? Email seems to be a channel that's maybe not as fun and exciting as Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat ads, right? But to us, email is just such a core channel when done right, can really, engage customers in that kind of conversational bit. And so, we're always talking about what, platforms they're using and what behavioral triggers and what kind of data they're using to kind of trigger some of those very meaningful email engagements. Because for us, that's something we look at holistically with our customers is, it's obviously a lot cheaper to retain customers than to go get new ones. And so just making sure that we have well thought through strategies, welcome series, post-purchase type programs, just to make sure that we're in constant communication with our customers.
Yeah, we're focusing, I would say 80% of our energy on exactly that, Courtney. We're, we already have a really core group of customers who love us. And so our plan now moving forward is to offer them more styles more frequently. 2020 was a huge challenge for us from a supply chain perspective, but we have really eager customers. And now that factories are sort of back up and running and we're back into production, our whole growth plan this year is based on new products more frequently, and then really pushing super segmented email messages to folks based on how many times they've purchased, how active they've been with us. And then, like I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation, utilizing the Facebook and the email replies to find out from folks, what should we make next? Help us choose a color, or vote on your favorite print. Like, we're involving our community with those new product developments and then making them, really a part of the process as we go through it.
I feel like Mickey hit on a really good point, because people love new product. And so teasing that out and creating that as a habit moment, I think is also something that is very key to the retention journey, especially for us, because we can come out with a new color of sheets pretty easy, but it's very difficult to make a whole new mattress. So I definitely agree with that piece too.
Yeah, for sure. So my next question is a little bit about kind of this post-COVID world. As parts of the world are starting to reopen and people are emerging from quarantine, how do you guys think that shoppers will engage with brands differently, if at all?
Yeah, I think that, we've had a year of very habit changing behavior. So to say, we're going back to normal, we have to redefine what that is. I think that how we grocery shop, to how we order products, to how we use Amazon, to how we that's just completely changed the last year of our lives. And so I think if anything, it's really exciting for all of us in e-commerce, right? It's just putting more and more focus and pressure. And I know we're seeing that across, our company and the brands that we're interacting with. But I think it's just raising the bar for the customer expectation even more. They know that there's so many other brands to choose from. There's other ways to shop. There's other ways to get their groceries, right? They're going to be more, a little bit more picky and demand more. So I think it's really important that brands come to the table with those top-notch experiences, drive up and pick up curbside, all of those types of things that now we're just used to expecting, from some of the, bigger Targets and Nordstroms of the world, right? That's how everyone wants to shop and interact with brands. So I think this next year will be really exciting to see some of the brands kind of continue to invest in some of those experiences, just because everything has changed so much.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I think, not just how you shop, but just your relationship with brands. People have different expectations now with respect to diversity, inclusion, transparency. Who am I enriching with this purchase? People care about where those dollars are going now in a way that they didn't 2 years ago. And so I think it's an opportunity for small brands to just be really human and, connect with folks, again, one-on-one, and just be really clear about what our goals are and who we're working with. But there are so many options. That's true. But I also think there's just like we as brands are trying to find ways to focus on retention, I think customers are in a similar place. I know I am. I don't want to shop from 1,000 brands. I want to have, deeper relationships with a few brands that I feel like share my values and I can trust the fit. I know what I'm going to get. And so I think we're in a really interesting place right now as small brands to sort of solidify those relationships.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. Another really hot topic that we hear a lot, of questions in our community is really about privacy, and how the privacy changes that are coming or have already happened, how will that impact how brands are attracting and developing relationships with customers? Will brands be forced to change their strategies? What do you think?
For us, we came at a time in e-commerce when, brands were built and ended on Facebook. There was a whole segment of specific types of startups that have the D2C Facebook ad. And that was because you could kind of spray and pray and you could get everybody that was on Facebook, which is anybody you could ever want in the world pretty much. And now with that shift towards privatization, I think, 2014 to 2018 was really about how good is your third party data? And now that, they're kind of becoming this cookieless world, it's really shifted back to how good is your first party data? and the stronger that data is like what it's actually going to make the kind of inflection point of when you're going to be able to convert those people. And I think that, ensuring that your tech stack is in line with like the goals that you have is very important, because you can't get data back. And so the faster that you get on that and make sure that there's no gaps in the customer journey, that you're being able to track them at every single point on your site, or even, different points of their media through like UTM tracking, et cetera, is really important. And it's definitely highlighted we're all speaking about retention, right? So like, I think it's highlighted how important retention has become.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's, really what we're talking to our brands about too, is just that first party data. I think, over the last couple of years, a lot of the brands we've worked with have put a CDP in place or put some different things in place to kind of better own and action their customer data. So I think that's been helpful, but I think it's then just taking that, saying you have all this great data, let's make a shift to those strategies. Let's actually use some of those data points instead of just saying, we have a product that's releasing, we're going to send this email to everybody, right? How about digging the data first and say, these are the trends, this is what we're seeing, we have all this great data, then let that inform a campaign. So I think that's kind of the shift, but I think definitely first party data is huge. And I do think it'll be interesting to see how the Google, Facebooks of the world are going to adapt to this, right? They're not just going to sit back and say, oh, no more cookies, or, all these privacy restrictions. They're obviously going to innovate. And so I think for us, that's something that our analytics team, our media team is just keeping a really close eye on, because we know there's going to be changes and evolution in that area.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we will live to see how it all plays out, I think. Well, we are getting close to the end of the panel, but I do want to ask, just on a personal and professional level, some of your goals for 2021, anything that's exciting for you, your brand on the horizon in the community that we can look out for.
Yeah, I can start. 2020 was it was a huge challenge for us. A lot of e-commerce, I think, did really well through the pandemic, and I think we would have seen that as well. But for us, we had really huge supply chain issues. Our factory went out of business, and then when everything reopened after COVID, as a small brand, we were competing against larger brands for factory floor space, and so we just couldn't get into production in 2020. And now, everything is opened back up, and we're developing 8 new styles in 4 different factories, and we hired this amazing product manager from Nike, with 15 years experience, and like everything just flipped. And so now, like we're ready to grow. We're about to put all these new styles, again, focusing on retention with new styles more frequently. And so we're just about to get on a schedule where we're putting out new stuff every 2 to 3 weeks. I'm really, really excited for what that will mean for us from a growth perspective, but also just giving us the ability to serve our customers better with broader range of products. I'm very, very, very excited about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and for us, so LiveArea, we've really worked heavily in kind of retail, health and beauty, CPG verticals. But I think what we're seeing that's really interesting is some of these other industries, as they're kind of evolving into more and starting to look more like e-commerce, right? We really have the opportunity to expand into those. So, some of the healthcare things, banking, other verticals that maybe a couple of years ago didn't feel like kind of e-commerce are. And so for us, that's a really exciting opportunity for us to expand what we're doing. So I'm really excited to spend some time with some other verticals in the near future.
I think Courtney hit on like a very interesting point just from like a professional level, is that I love watching like legacy, like massive brands like have offshoots of like D2Cs and like copying the kind of branding and like the look and feel. One that had just like really kind of made me laugh was I think it was Colgate, or it was something toothbrush that was like a canary yellow toothbrush. And I was just like, who are these guys? Because, I think all of us are pretty tapped in. And then I realized it was just like a Colgate toothbrush. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, so we are really leveling up like our reporting capabilities, kind of speaking to the point that I had said before, which is just making sure that, your data is clean and in a place where you can action it. I think we're really reimagining our tech stack to understand these cross-sell moments better. And I think that is, with our North Star of LTV. So that's really exciting for me.
Awesome. Well, that is about all we have time for, but I do want to say a huge thank you for all of you taking the time to be here today and sharing all of these incredible insights. Honestly, our community has lots of questions, so hopefully after this you'll be able to answer some. But really, thank you very much. And to our viewers, make sure you stay tuned because our next session is with Cher Fuller from Forever 21. Thank you again, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruthie, and hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Rosenthal, and I'm a Senior Enterprise Account Executive leading the Fashion and Accessories vertical here at Yotpo. I'm here today with Cher Fuller, Head of CRM and Loyalty at Forever 21. Thanks for joining me today, Cher.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you join Amazing Women in E-commerce. I have personally had the pleasure of getting to know you over the last 6 months and cannot say enough wonderful, wonderful things about what an awesome and earnest person you are. So why don't we get started with you telling our viewers about yourself? What's your role like at Forever?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. It's very flattering of you to say. So I oversee our CRM and loyalty team at Forever 21. And so, what I'm really focused on at Forever 21 is not just being consumer centric, but really being consumer obsessed. So I have really found my place in really being I keep wanting to say obsessed, but obsessed with this younger generation. So this younger group of people that are really coming up through the marketing vertical and kind of guiding us as brands as to how to walk and talk and how we present ourselves to the world. So what gets me really excited about what we do and just who I kind of am as a person is I'm inherently really, really curious. I really want to know who people are. I want to know what they're into, and I want to know like what the weirdos are into. Like, what are the outliers doing? What's happening out there in the world, so that we as marketers and as a brand can really find that like small niche where we can reflect what we're seeing in culture into the marketing that we're doing from a day-to-day standpoint.
Awesome. I love that. But tell us a little bit more about your journey in your career, getting to this point in your career.
Yeah, so when I started out in marketing, I was really dabbling in some of the communities that we were seeing on Facebook. And I don't want to age myself, but you had to have a college email to sign up for Facebook, and it was called The Facebook. Yeah. And it was this like, crazy space where you could find all these different communities. And I just kind of started working with a few freelance clients who were interested in getting onto Facebook and understanding how communities worked. And, at the time, I found myself kind of, as you come out of college and start to think about what you're going to do next, thinking about what's my future, what is out there for me. I was majoring in visual rhetoric at Oregon State and kind of understanding what advertising looked like. Mm-hmm. So I made the stance that I wanted to be a social media strategist. And this guy that I was dating at the time, who also in marketing, was like, "That's not a job." Like, that's not real. And so I think that, and I think the reason why that one thing kind of burns in my brain is I've always kind of gone against the grain. Like, I've always tell me what I can't do. Tell me exactly that it's not a job and I'll make it a job. Tell me what the rules are and I'll break them. And so I've, had this really amazing path forward where I've been able to be daring and kind of go against what people have told me they wouldn't quite recommend. I had the fortune of working on Taco Bell early in my career, which was a brand like super born out of innovation. I worked with the e-commerce innovation team with Tracy Lieberman, who is just like the queen in my eyes of digital innovation. And I understood how you essentially can make a list of all the rules and then figure out how to break them. Like, how are we going to grab attention? How are we going to be the outlier that understands, here's what everyone else is doing, but here's the thing that we're going to do differently. And so my path forward has been kind of built on, understanding what the rules are and how to break them. And, I used to get in trouble a lot for, being the voice of the people. People always say, my bosses and managers are like, you don't have to speak up for everyone. You don't have to go to bat for everyone. And I kind of felt like I inherently had this confidence and was born with this support from, my mom of speaking up for what was right and speaking up when things don't make sense. And so, I've really treasured having that kind of confidence and understanding that, I can do right by people that are coming up around me and young women that are entering into their career and trying to navigate what it means to be a marketer or what it means to be a woman that stands her ground. And so, that's something that I've always taken a lot of pride in is really taking the path of resistance and understanding what those bumps and bruises are going to look like along the way. But coming out, to the other side and understanding, even when I get in trouble, how to do it differently.
Awesome. And I really love that you mentioned that, because I feel like in one of our early conversations, you shared a story about advocating for having more diversity in your meetings. And I left that Zoom meeting and came to our amazing women in e-commerce and was like, we have to include Cher. Let me tell you this story. Okay, so now you're at Forever 21 and the brand seems to be undergoing a major transformation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think for a while, and even, I'm relatively new, so I'm just under the year threshold at Forever 21. The story's been the bankruptcy. Like, I think that's kind of what everybody talked about. And, we lost sight of where we were going. We lost sight of who our consumer was and what mattered to them. And so, we're in this new era where we have new leadership. Our CEO, Daniel Cole, is really, really focused on sustainability, working with ethical vendors, and really empowering us to do what's right by our consumers. So I think that we're in a really amazing place where we are getting back to our roots of understanding who we're marketing to and really even taking it a step further of what really matters to them. We have this really exciting and diverse group of young consumers that are ingesting the brand, that have their own values, principles, things that they stand for. And I think that it's really nice to be part of a brand that's taking all of these types of points of view and putting them into the marketing that we're doing. So a lot of the things that, we are moving forward with is understanding what are the values of our consumer. So, we understand that sustainability, inclusion, and community are three pillars that we have to back up everything that we do. So when I think about CRM and I think about loyalty, every single thing that I do is put into these three pillars, because I know, and our data has shown us, and our consumer has told us that these are the three things that are going to really matter to them. And I think, a few years ago, at a conference, someone said something that one of the speakers said something that really resonated with me, that brands or people don't need brands. Like we are in a generation of content creators, and you can post your entire story on Instagram and get sponsored by a brand, and like that's now the shift. Like people don't need us, we need them, and that's the paradigm shift that I think is really starting to move some of these brands into more authentic marketing. And I always pause after we talk about authenticity, because I think it's something that people have they're scared to say authentic. It's like the new marketing buzzword, but it really is like where we need to be rooted in. We need to be authentic. I don't really subscribe to the idea that marketing needs to be a slimy, horrible place where we're just trying to push people into buying things. Obviously, at the end of the day, our bottom line is always going to be, revenue and looking at the money that the brand is bringing in, but it needs to be done in a way that's ethical, that's conscionable, that we are really taking into account the wants and the needs of the people that we're marketing towards. So I think that Forever 21 is in a really exciting place. We're rethinking the way that we come to market with collaborations, the way that we work with different artists, the way that we allow them to have a profit share of what their collections are doing under Forever 21. I just think that we've really shifted the needle into focusing on the consumer and keeping that our central focus and our North Star.
Awesome, thank you. And I'd love to hear, has your customer changed during the last year, or have their behaviors changed?
Yeah, so the past year, I've been split between two companies. So I come from, so I grew up in Oregon. I was working at Nike and at the beginning of the pandemic, and then shifted and came over to Forever 21 for a new life adventure. I was like, LA. But I think that the pandemic was super, super interesting in the way that consumers kind of like revealed themselves and showed us this like new behavior. Like the way that we traditionally think about marketing certain products is done in a way where, you know, we're telling you how to use the product and how to integrate that into your life. The flip started happening during the pandemic. You had people that were staying home. You had people that were having some mental health issues, some people that were like having a really hard time shifting this into this new environment that we were in. And all of a sudden, the products that marketers were selling were being used in these different types of ways. So, you know, when we think about leggings, traditionally leggings and, you know, yoga pants are an athletic based piece of apparel. People we're not working out every day at home. Like we were literally just sitting at home every single day because this was our new environment. So we had to start shifting our marketing strategy around how the product was fitting into our consumer's life and not necessarily how we wanted the product to fit into their life. Mm-hmm. So I think that it was really interesting to rethink that product strategy and that messaging strategy, and also just to have some cheeky fun with it, like really to kind of drop our guard and put our walls down and kind of say like, like this sucks. Like we're all home, but we're in this together. And so, you know, it was like pull all the levers, find all the resources that you could have to really shift what your content strategy looked like, and also to be empathetic to the way that the world was changing around us. There were, you know, a lot of times I'm looking back to what was happening last season. We have, you know, many brands are like Amazon Prime Day is coming up. How do we know that? It happens every year at this time. Nordstrom's anniversary or half yearly sale just happened. How do we know that? Happens same time every year. Those are like the dates and the gates and the trends that we generally look to when we're marketing. We didn't have those. So, you know, I'm not saying like Prime Day's not happening. I don't want to start that rumor. Prime Day's, but, you know, we would look back and say back to school starting. Time to push jeans, time to push backpacks. And I remember sitting in a meeting where we were talking about like this inventory of backpacks that we had. And we were like, what are we going to do? Tell them like walk from that room to that room. Like, so they were just like these really real conversations of like people weren't doing what we needed them to do. And so the consumer changed, their priorities have changed. The things that we know are important or that we need to focus our mental space on and our mental health have changed. And I think brands need to change along with them. And I think this is going to really put the rubber to the road of marketers that can make these shifts and can really start to do the consumer research, you know, not even just in quantitative, but qualitative, talk to their consumers and understand what's changed in their life and how they need to change along with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking of changing shopper behaviors, things are starting to open up again, and shoppers are expected to be doing more hybrid shopping in store and online. How do you create a cohesive omnichannel experience for a customer who shops both ways?
So that's kind of like the big question. I mean, I wish I could just be like, oh, you just do this. You know, I think that the challenge is that we know internally how teams are set up and how different touch points work together and how our platforms and data systems are set up to integrate. It's a very tedious and hard connection, but to a consumer, they know no different. And there really is this expectation that what I do in a store translates to what I do online. So if I'm on my computer and I see you know, something that's in stock online, I want to know that if I go to the store, it's there too. So we need to make sure that that connection between offline to online is seamless, because consumers don't think in these silos. They don't think like, oh, I'm looking at this through an email. Oh, I'm looking at this on web. Now I'm over here. All of these things need to be interconnected. So I think the more that we can think, and you know, I think this is also a hybrid evolution to the way that we think about creating our teams internally, is to really mix up the people that are in different departments and are responsible for different things and make sure that they're talking to each other so that they understand like all of the different touch points that a consumer goes through. I think one thing that's, I'd never experienced this before until I came to Forever 21, but the first week when someone is hired, they have to spend that week in the stores training. And, I came in during December. So I was like, I'm in my like mid 30s going to the mall to work at Forever 21 during the holiday. And it was wild. And I saw things that I had not anticipated because I'm so used to being on the digital side. I'm so used to sitting on, this side of all my screens and just like creating these journeys. And some of the things that I saw, were some of these young girls that had saved their wish list from the app on their phone. And then they were coming into the store to touch and feel the material. And as they were doing this, they were going through their app. And to them, this was such a seamless thing that I had just not thought of. And so I think that one of the things, when we talk about like, what's this new world? What is it going to be like to shop? Go in your stores, see what it's like to be a consumer, go in other stores, go in your competitor stores. Our CEO goes to the mall all the time. Like sometimes I laugh because I wonder like, do these people know that this guy is like, he's like FaceTime, like showing us everything. And like, I wonder if they know this, man with the phone filming them is like the CEO of Forever 21. Like, well, I love him. So I think that, like, as we start to look at what that journey forward looks like, we have to experience it so we can walk in their shoes and understand what all those touch points look like. And unfortunately, I think oftentimes the most seamless experience, the thing that looks the easiest, is born from like weeks and months of strategy and brainstorming and wireframing it and building all of these really complex systems so that when it gets to the consumer, they're really just like, they don't even know that all of these really difficult things kind of happened in the back end. So, I think it's our mess to figure out, I say that lovingly, it's our journey to figure out on the back end, so that the consumer never really notices. But that should be the bar of success, I think, is that a consumer doesn't even realize that they're in the store. Their app should know their online purchases. It should know their in-store purchases. It should know their sizing. It should know their preferred delivery address, checkout. All of these things should just be so quick so that with the small attention span that they have, it's bum, and they go in and they can make that purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have been talking about loyalty ad nauseum for 6 months. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how does loyalty play a role in creating strong customer relationships? So I think that there's this like, the paradox of choice. Like when you go to the grocery store, why do we need 25 brands of toothpaste? Like there's so many things. And so, I think the race is always kind of to get the consumer to understand what's in it for them. So a lot of times we look at that from a value proposition. We say, what's the benefit to, buying this product? What does it do for you? What's the life cycle of this product in your life? I think loyalty takes that product strategy and pulls it back to a brand strategy. So as the consumer is in the mall and sees all of these different choices, they're met with the paradox of choice. Which store do I go into? We need to be able to answer the question of what's in it for me. So there needs to be something that forces the consumer into choice. The trick is to understand what they care about. So this is where I say, I become very consumer obsessed. I want to know exactly what matters to our consumer, because when I think about loyalty, I don't really think about it in the fact of like, you need to be loyal to us. I'm thinking about it and setting up this program from the position of the brand needs to be loyal to you. You have given us your business. You have integrated us and brought us into your home. We owe you something in terms of being loyal. So I think that when we look at what the brand has at their fingertips that they can provide access to,
That's something that I'm super interested in when it comes to loyalty. So how do we elevate and offer some of these programs and platforms that back the things that our customer cares about? We know that doing good with your wallet is something that the consumer is super focused on. So a lot of the loyalty shifts that we're looking at right now, again, ladder up into those 3 pillars. So what does inclusion look like? What does community look like? What does sustainability look like when we build out a loyalty program? So I think that one of the things I'm super excited about is being able to provide access to events, to provide access to ways that people can come together in a community sense. And I think the trick is it can't feel slimy. So we're not trying to like wheel and deal you for points. We're trying to say, we are more than a clothing brand. We are, now shifting into this lifestyle space, and we want to take you along with us. So because you have been so loyal to us and helped us get to a place where we can provide this access, we now want to take you on this journey. And I've had this theory for a while, and I'm starting to see it come to fruition. And I think especially with people getting vaccinated and kind of coming out of the stay home time, is that everything was accessible in digital. Like everything, you could go or see anything. I can go on Snapchat right now and see what's trending in Paris by just going to the heat map. I just think, TikTok, exactly what's happening in other people's lives, exactly what all the like fun, cool dances are. And so I think that the shift that we're going to see, and it makes me laugh because it's like what I'm seeing in terms of trends right now of like the 90s are trending. Like I'm like, if we bring back low-rise jeans and crop tops, like I will die.
Yeah,
but you know what? If like young girls, if your metabolism is that good, like 1, eat all the quesadillas you can, and then 2, like buy the low-rise jeans by all means. But I think like we're seeing these like shifts come back around where like it's not going to be about the digital experiences that everyone has access to. We're going to be shifting back out into physical experiences that have more of an exclusivity. And so I don't think that needs to be, on the biggest grand scale of like, oh, we can take you to Coachella or Stagecoach, but we can create meaningful real life experiences that exist in the real world with real people that feel intimate, they feel special, but they still feel inclusive, because we've taken the time to understand that these are the types of things that matter to you and your community. And we have the means to create that experience and bring you in with us.
I loved all of that you just shared. So one last question before we go. You talk a lot about responsibility for marketers. Can you explain what you mean by that and why it's so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think at our core, everybody needs to understand what drives them. Like you have to know why you wake up every morning and why you deal with, the hard days and when business is bad. And for me, I have worked in athletics for a really long time. And that meant that, when I got done with working, I would go to the gym and I coached kids from ages 4 to 19 for like 15 years. I was so heavily involved with these kids. And I got to understand the way that they ingested content and the way that they saw themselves in the communities that were being represented on social media. And I had kind of this awakening moment a few years ago where I realized that marketing plays such a pivotal role in holding a mirror up to culture and making sure that we're accurately reflecting the way that little girls and boys see themselves in the images that we present as marketers. So when I say that we have a huge responsibility, what I mean is it's on us to speak up and say something when we see something that doesn't look right. If your ad campaigns are not reflecting the diversity of that actually exists within the census. I mean, you can literally go into the US Census data and understand percentages of what the makeup of race looks like in the United States. That's a really like low hanging fruit way to just say like, how do I need to have representation in the marketing campaigns that I'm doing? And so I think that there's a huge responsibility to understand that kids are ingesting marketing at such a young age. And it is on us to create an environment where they feel loved and they feel accepted and they see themselves in the images that we're portraying as being something that you should strive for in terms of beauty. So, you know, I don't take that responsibility lightly. And I think it's something, it is my why, it's my North Star. And I actually have this like picture. It's not, I mean, I just moved to LA, so I don't have any, my whole apartment looks like this, but one of the pictures that I have up that like faces me in my office is, it just says, "Where do the mermaids stand?" And it's this is literally like what drove me into my why. So it's this story. It's from like Chicken Soup for the like teenage soul that I read in like college. Whereas this story about this young pastor, and he was putting together this game for kids. And, you know, it's just like a game meant to like get their sillies out and run around. And he said to the kids, okay, like you each get to choose if you're a wizard, a giant, or a goblin. And then like, you know, I'm going to call out the names and you're going to run around crazy. And so like all the kids are running around, they're figuring out what group they're in. Like, oh, I'm going to be a wizard. And this little girl comes up to him and like pulls on his legs like, well, where do the mermaids stand? And he's like, oh, there aren't mermaids. And she's like, no, I am a mermaid. So where do I stand? And so it's, you know, like this just like really beautiful story of understanding, like there are kids that do not fit into the molds that we have presented in society and marketing as a whole. And to me, I want to constantly ask myself in everything that I'm doing, like, where do the mermaids stand? Like, where do these kids that don't, you know, that are non-gender conforming, that, you know, have crazy hair colors and, you know, are super focused on, you know, gender fluidity and loving who they love and, you know, not subscribing to, you know, fitting into a bucket. Where do they stand? Like, where do they fit in all of this? And so that's really what drives me, is to think about the little boys and girls that I've seen. And, you know, unfortunately in my lifetime have seen young boys and little girls commit suicide and kill themselves because they just don't feel like they fit in. They just don't see their place. So like at a very, very intimate level, that's my why. And that is what drives me to make sure that I'm doing ethical marketing and that I am listening, not to the group, but almost to the outliers of what matters to them and where they see themselves, so that I can give them a place and provide them access to feel loved and wanted.
That is so powerful to share, and exactly why we wanted to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you to our amazing speakers and attendees for joining us for this wonderful event today. But a special thank you to Yotpo and our event partners, ListTrack, Live Area, Afterpay, and Just Juno. We will, of course, be sending you a full recording of today's event via email, so stay tuned for that. We'll also be sending out an email asking you to rate today's event and to share your feedback. We would greatly appreciate if you can take a few minutes to fill it out. It will help us bring the best speakers and the most relevant topics possible. And if you want to share any content from the event on social, please make sure to tag @Women in Ecom and @Yotpo so we can reshare. Thank you again, and stay tuned for our next event.